They say Miyamoto Musashi never lost a duel, but the battle that made him legendary wasn't fought with a sword. It was fought every morning, against comfort, distraction, and hesitation. Centuries later, those same enemies still defeat people silently. This is the story of the 4 morning rules Musashi lived by. Rules that turn ordinary mornings into weapons against laziness. And it begins with a question most people are afraid to answer. Who do you serve first every morning? Your future or your cravings? This is not a motivational story. It's a discipline lesson hidden inside a life. Greg was one of those students. You know the type. The ones teachers use as examples. The ones parents point at and say, "Be like him." In his final year of school, Greg didn't just pass exams, he built an app. An actual app. One that put his school on the map across the entire state. Suddenly, his name was everywhere. Teachers mentioned him with pride. Students spoke about him with admiration. Some envied him quietly. Greg wasn't just intelligent. He was focused, curious, disciplined. He didn't waste time. He asked the right questions. And when he started something, he finished it. People didn't sit around wondering if Greg would succeed. That question was already answered. The real question was, how far would he go? Everyone expected him to win. After graduation, life opened up. Job offers came in. Opportunities knocked. People expected Greg to move fast and move big. But Greg paused. "I just need to rest a bit," he said, "before I enter the next phase of life." And honestly, it sounded reasonable. After years of pressure, deadlines, and late nights, rest felt earned. At first it was rest, but slowly, quietly, something changed. There was no plan, no structure, no timeline. Just mornings that all looked the same. The alarm would ring. Greg would reach for his phone. Not his purpose. Messages, social media, trending news, other people's lives. He would scroll, compare, and scroll some more. "I'll start later," he thought. "There's still time." Days slipped into weeks. Weeks melted into months. 6 months passed. And Greg didn't even notice. What he called rest was no longer rest. It was comfort without direction. Freedom without discipline. And slowly, without any dramatic moment, rest became decay. On the first day of October, Greg finally showed up. New job, fresh start. Another chance to prove everyone right. And the first week? Perfect. He arrived early, earlier than most. He spoke with confidence. His ideas were sharp, clear, and thoughtful. People noticed. This guy is smart. You can tell he's different. He's going to go far. Greg felt it too. That old version of himself, focused, driven, alive, seemed to return. But then, something shifted. The second week didn't feel the same. He started arriving late. Not dramatically late, just late enough to notice. Some mornings, he sat on his bed staring at the floor thinking, "Do I really feel like going in today?" Nothing external had changed. The job was still good. The people were still kind. The opportunity was still there. But Greg was already losing a battle he wasn't paying attention to. A battle that started every morning, long before work. Before Greg ever touched his laptop. Before he wrote a single line of code. Before he even left his room. He had already drained himself. Every morning followed the same ritual. Scroll. Reply messages. Read bad news. Watch other people's wins. Compare silently. Someone younger doing better. Someone lazier getting lucky. Someone louder getting attention. By the time Greg stepped into the office, his mind was cluttered, heavy, exhausted. Not from work, but from consumption. He hadn't built anything yet, but he was already tired. And the worst part? Greg knew. Deep down, a quiet voice kept saying, "This isn't who you are." He tried to fix it. One good week, early mornings, focused work. Hope returned. Then slowly, back to the same pattern. The phone, the scrolling, the numb mornings. Time passed, not loudly, but mercilessly. 2 years went by. No promotion, no growth, no hunger. The boy everyone expected to win was still there, but the fire that once drove him was now buried under habits he never thought were dangerous. By his 3rd year at work, Greg attended a class reunion. Nothing fancy. Just old classmates, plastic chairs, loud laughter, and memories pulled from the past. At first it felt good. Old jokes resurfaced. Nicknames returned. Stories from school days flew around the room like they never left. Then the conversation shifted. Someone talked about an app they built, now being used by thousands. Another mentioned a startup that just secured funding. Someone else spoke about how their product was helping small businesses survive. Tech had changed their lives. And slowly, one by one, eyes turned toward Greg. The same Greg. The one everyone expected to outgrow them. "So, Greg," someone asked with a smile, "what have you been up to?" The room grew quiet. Not the respectful kind of quiet, the uncertain kind. Greg smiled. He spoke about his job. Kept it short. Kept it safe. No big milestones. No major growth. Nothing that matched the reputation that walked into the room with him. Heads nodded politely. Someone cleared their throat. The conversation moved on. But inside Greg, something cracked. That room felt less like a reunion and more like a hall of mirrors. Every reflection showed him who he was supposed to be and how far he had drifted from it. As the event ended, Greg felt a hand tap his shoulder. It was Mr. Cletus and one of his old lecturers. The man who once told him, "If you stay consistent, you'll go farther than talent ever could." They stepped aside, away from the noise. No rush, no pressure, just silence. Greg tried to speak, but failed. Then his voice broke. "I don't know what happened to me," he said quietly. "I feel tired all the time, even when I do nothing." Mr. Cletus didn't interrupt. He didn't correct him. He just listened. Greg continued, "I used to wake up hungry to build things. Now I wake up already exhausted. I still work, but I don't feel alive doing it." Mr. Cletus nodded slowly. Then he asked one simple question. "When was the last time you controlled your mornings? Instead of letting them control you?" Greg had no answer. The silence returned. Finally, Mr. Cletus stood up and said calmly, "Come to my house tomorrow evening." Greg looked up, surprised. "For what?" he asked. Mr. Cletus smiled, not warmly, not coldly, just knowingly. "To show you where your energy has been leaking," he said. "And why the man you were didn't disappear." Tuesday evening, Mr. Cletus led Greg into a quiet room at the back of his house. No television, no humming fan, no background noise, just shelves of old books neatly arranged like soldiers standing at attention. Greg felt uneasy, not because the room was strict, but because it was honest. Mr. Cletus didn't sit immediately. He stood looking around, then turned to Greg and asked calmly, "Greg, who do you serve first every morning? Your future or your cravings?" The question landed heavy. Greg opened his mouth to answer, then stopped. His eyes dropped to the floor. "My phone," he whispered. No excuses, no explanation. Mr. Cletus nodded, almost amused. "I know," he said softly. "Most people do." He walked toward the shelf and pulled out an old book, worn edges, faded cover. "My uncle lived in Japan for many years," he said. "He gave me this when I was young. He told me, 'This book is not about swords, it's about mornings.'" He handed it to Greg. "The Morning Rules of Miyamoto Musashi." Greg frowned slightly. "The swordsman?" Mr. Cletus smiled. "The man who understood laziness before the word existed." Mr. Cletus sat down. "Musashi didn't lose battles," he began. "But the real battle he mastered happened every morning." Greg listened. "Rule 1. Move before the mind speaks." Mr. Cletus leaned forward. "The moment you negotiate with your alarm," he said, "you lose." Greg nodded slowly. That's exactly what I do. I argue with myself. That argument, Mr. Cletus replied, is laziness being born. He opened the book. Musashi believed the mind is unreliable when comfort is involved. So he never asked himself how he felt in the morning. Greg raised his eyebrows. Then what did he do? He moved. No thinking, no debating, no just 5 minutes. Musashi trained his body to obey before comfort entered the mind, Mr. Cletus said. Because once comfort speaks first, discipline goes silent. Laziness doesn't come from exhaustion. It comes from hesitation. Stand up, Mr. Cletus continued. Wash your face, walk, stretch, breathe. Movement breaks the spell. Musashi understood something modern people ignore. Action creates energy, comfort kills it. Rule 2, work before pleasure. Greg glanced at his phone on the table. So, the phone is the problem? He asked. Mr. Cletus shook his head. No, the order is. He continued. Musashi never rewarded himself before effort. Never pleasure before discipline. In modern life, pleasure comes first. Scroll first, laugh first, consume first. And after that, there's nothing left to fight for. One hard task, Mr. Cletus said. That's all Musashi demanded in the morning. Train, write, build, think deeply, then rest. Dopamine must be earned, he said quietly. Otherwise, your brain becomes lazy without knowing it. Greg swallowed. He felt exposed. Rule 3, simplicity sharpens the mind. Mr. Cletus poured 2 cups of water and handed one to Greg. Musashi woke up to this, he said. Water, silence, movement. No music, no comfort, no stimulation. Why? Greg asked. Because complexity weakens resistance, Mr. Cletus replied. The more luxury you take early, the less discipline you have later. Greg suddenly remembered his mornings. Soft bed, endless scrolling, multiple tabs open. His mornings were rich. His focus was poor. Musashi believed a simple morning creates a sharp mind. Rule 4, solitude builds clarity. Finally, Mr. Cletus closed the book. Musashi walked alone not because he hated people, he said, but because noise lies. Silence doesn't distract, it reveals. When you sit alone in the morning, he continued, your excuses have nowhere to hide. That's why people avoid silence. Not because they're busy, but because silence asks difficult questions. Musashi faced those questions daily. That's why he never drifted. That's why laziness never grew roots. Mr. Cletus looked directly at Greg. You don't need motivation, he said. You need to stop negotiating. Musashi didn't wake up inspired. He woke up obedient to discipline. Every morning he chose action over comfort. And laziness? It never even got a seat at the table. Greg didn't sleep well that night. Not because he was tired, but because he was thinking. Mr. Cletus's words echoed in his head. Move before the mind speaks. Morning came faster than expected. The alarm rang. And for the first time in years, Greg did nothing. No reaching for the phone. No checking notifications. No scrolling. His body stayed still, but his mind exploded. Just today won't matter. You can start tomorrow. You already decided, why prove anything now? Greg smiled faintly. So this is the voice, he whispered. Laziness didn't sound loud. It sounded reasonable. Greg sat up. Not fast, not dramatic, but deliberate. His feet touched the floor. That was it. The hardest part was already over. He stood, walked to the sink, and washed his face with cold water. The shock didn't wake his body. It woke his authority. For the first time in a long while, Greg was giving orders instead of asking permission. He stretched. Nothing impressive. Just movement. His mind tried again. Why are you doing this? What's the point? But the rule was clear. Don't argue. Don't explain. Just move. 10 minutes passed. And something strange happened. The noise softened. Not gone, but weaker. Musashi had been right. Once the body moves, the mind falls into line. Greg sat at his desk. The phone was still there. Silent. Waiting. He didn't hate it. He didn't fight it. He ignored it. One task. Just one. He opened his laptop and wrote code, slowly at first. No pressure. No ambition. Just honest work. 15 minutes became 30. And for the first time in years, Greg felt something unfamiliar. Momentum. Not excitement. Not motivation. Control. No music played. No background noise filled the room. Just keys clicking. Breath moving. Thoughts forming clearly. Greg noticed something important. Nothing magical had happened. No surge of inspiration. No sudden clarity. But laziness had lost its grip. It had been starved. When Greg finally picked up his phone later that morning, it felt smaller. Not weaker, just less powerful. He understood something Musashi knew centuries ago. You don't defeat laziness with force. You starve it by refusing to obey it early. Greg looked at the clock. He was early for work. Not rushing. Not anxious. Just ready. As he stepped outside, he smiled. Not because life had changed, but because he had begun to change it.